My friend, this is Joe Bakmotsky. I want to welcome you into this conversation of healing from trauma. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of speaking with the indomitable Donna Lyon, survivor, founder of Left, Right, Hook, a friend, and just a beautiful human being who's helping so many people who've been through abuse. We're going to talk about Donna's own journey and the program that she has created to bring together writing and boxing in a way that helps people heal. Donna, first, I want to thank you because you changed my life. Meeting you and hearing your story made me reconnect with my own story of going through rape as a child and put me on a path towards healing. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, and just so excited to be talking to you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joe. And yeah, I'm just in this room, which is like motion detected. So like with the lights, it's going to keep going on and off. And so occasionally I'm going to be waving my hands around like a mad woman. But look, it's really terrific to be here. And, even though you say that like I changed your life, I think, I'm not sure. I think, I was a catalyst for change for sure. But I want to really call out that you were the one that did that, because I suggested, you reached out to me. I just met you. I suggested a couple of things, and I certainly suggested strongly that you needed to start the healing journey around your sexual abuse, but you went and then did the work. I didn't do that. You did it. And I just think that's really important to acknowledge.
Thank you, Donna. And this journey of healing from trauma, it's vital, but it's also, as we know, it ain't easy, is it? So, Donna, your own personal journey towards healing, where did it start for you?
Look, it probably started. I probably started in my early 30s when I got sober. And that's really where I kind of hit the rock bottom that they kind of, talk about. And I got into recovery. And I knew it wasn't until my mid-20s that I remembered being abused. Before that, I had absolutely no idea. I think I had all the symptoms, I had all the signs, but I had absolutely no memory. If you had asked me how my childhood was, I would have just said, it was good. Really monosyllabic. I didn't have a lot of memory. I didn't really even remember my childhood. A lot of amnesia around my past. And so I met a woman at a party. She relayed a story of her own abuse. And something she said that night just unlocked memories inside me. And I remember just kind of going to the bathroom, and the room just started spinning. And it wasn't because of alcohol. It was something she said. And I turned to my partner at the time and I said, I need you to take me home. And I got in the car and I just started crying. And it was like these tears unlocked, like from something so deep inside me. Like I still almost like, I can't describe that feeling of that well. It was like it was just this buried emotion. And I knew something bad had happened to me. I knew that I'd been sexually abused. But I couldn't understand why I couldn't remember that. And why I was like in denial or had repression of memory or amnesia. And like, I didn't understand that was a phenomenon, that's a thing, that dissociation happens. And so, then it took like really, so I woke up the next day and I was like, right, I'm going to heal. Like something bad's happened to me. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to get better. And the more that I tried to do that, to fix it, whatever that kind of means, the worse actually it got. Because actually at that time, I didn't have effective coping mechanisms. So to sit with the feelings that were coming up, and there was a lot of memory that was coming up, a lot of regression. I was going into child parts. I was having bodily memories, shivering and shaking. The trauma was kind of replaying, I guess. But the more that kind of happened, the more kind of ill-equipped I was. And my coping mechanism at that time was alcohol. So that was until really I addressed that, which was about 30, 31. That's, I think, not when that was, the healing couldn't have happened properly. So I was dabbling in that healing space. I was really wanting to get better, get well, but I was also doing it through a lot of like new age practices, really self-help. And, at the end of the day, I just kind of needed to surrender. I needed to surrender to the fact that like I was a kind of a victim. I needed to admit that, and I needed to go and get help. And I did. And I think that process of healing has taken, it's taken over 10 years, and, probably took quite a few years to stabilize. But yeah, I think not drinking and getting recovery for that as well really helped.
Absolutely, Donna. And so you were talking about body memories, you were talking about experiencing things and not really being able to relate what it was. Was there a point when you could start putting your experiences into words, even to yourself?
It's a good question. Not really. I mean, yes or no. I think, for me, it was mostly fragments. And so again, it took a very long time to find language to express what happened to me. And even now, it's not linear, it's fragmented, it's dissociative. It's held in parts of me, parts of my brain, essentially, that, have the trauma memory. So it's not necessarily accessible in an everyday conscious state. And in some respects, that's really good, because actually I think I'm really high functioning. And I think it's that dissociation that has really protected me and allowed me to, I guess, function in the world in a pretty capable way. So I think, yes, in some respects, the language came the more that I did the work. And so the language came through working with my therapist, but the language came through drawing. The language came through fragmented pieces of writing. It didn't necessarily come out as a full-blown, at this age, I was wearing this, I was in this location, and this person came, like it didn't happen like that. And I think my experience is very common. I think it's often dismissed, but I think by psychologists and trauma and those who are experts in the field of trauma, like Bessel van der Kolk, Judith Herman, they validate that experience and memory relocation in a way that to me is really validating. And my therapist also really validated that process. We used creative, imaginal ways to bypass my conscious mind to, get into, really buried memories. But also that was also really hard, Joe, because that brought up a lot of dysregulation and fear. And so I had to go super slowly. Like, this was not a, it took me about I was reflecting on it with someone on an email this morning. Like, it took about 5 years for me to really trust my therapist. I was in a heightened state of fear. Sometimes I sit in her office and in order for me to locate memory or go into some sort of vulnerable state, I had to sit behind a chair. So away from her, my back to her, behind a chair, in order to talk to her, because I literally did not want her to see me. I felt so disgusted and full of shame. And like, that was the intensity of the state. Sometimes I'd go to her office and fall asleep because I was just like, I couldn't process anything. I'd just fall asleep. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm paying, $70 or whatever it is an hour, just to go to someone's office and fall asleep. Like, I didn't want to do that. Like, I wanted to kind of, have a really meaningful experience. And so, but I had to ride through those waves and just see that it was part of a bigger journey. And, you know, if you had told me, oh, you'd be in therapy for 10 years, I'd be like, no, I won't. I'll be going through that journey in 2 years. Thank you very much. And I will be completely healed and amazing. You know, I wouldn't have been in it if I had known, but it has taken that long. It continues to be something that I dedicate, you know, a weekly effort to, and you know, but things have certainly shifted.
And it's a powerful way that you describe it, Donna. I really love the fact that it's, you know, we're not talking about it being some easy thing, and you know, because it's that's why we talk about this idea of a journey, right? That it's something that takes time and it's hard, and but at the same time I think it's really powerful because it means that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be this figure everything out instantly. Sometimes it's like one step forward and sometimes it's two steps back, and it's a journey where you go through the process, what is figuring out what's right for you. And you, Donna, you talk about there's so many twists and turns to your journey, the way that you talk about it, right? I want to talk about what are the moments where that you're proud of the most, the moments where you sense something started shifting for you.
That's such a great question. I think I'm really proud of the effort that I put in, and I didn't give up. So like I went kind of like all guns blazing with my mental health. Like you name it, I was doing it every day. You know, sometimes every minute of the day, I was doing it. And I needed to do that because otherwise I really felt like I was going to commit suicide. I was living with suicidal ideation for at least 2 years. I mean, I've lived with it for probably about 20 years, to be honest. But it was very, very persistent. It's now not as persistent. And so I'm just proud that like I didn't just do one thing. You know, it's therapy. I was 12-step programs. I was and doing all the work that's associated with that. I was doing at that time prayer ministry. I was you know, just getting up and reading and praying and writing and calling people and you know, just exercising and you know all of this kind of stuff to kind of basically change my life and get better and get a sort of a stable foundation. So I'm proud that I did that, and I think that if you are going to do this journey, you have to commit like 180, like 200%, you know, to it. Like it's not just one day a week that you go and see someone. It's every day you got to do something. And when I don't do something every day, I find that like I can rest on my laurels now, right? Like, you know, it's like, you know, I don't really need to do it every day. You know, I just doesn't really matter. I'm better now. And then I start going down, you know, and I fall into a depression, or, you know, the negative thinking or the shame, you know, all of that. So I have to be really militant about it. And, you know, look, don't get me wrong, I'm not Miss Perfect. Like, you know, I say that with the caveat, you know, like, I didn't ground myself this morning, for example. You know, I got up, I was rushing around, I've been busy, but it's at the forefront of my mind, I think, is the point. And mostly I am doing something every day.
You rock, Donna. And listen, I love that you speak to your journey and that commitment that you make to yourself, because that's so vital to us going through trauma and being on the journey towards healing, because it's hard. I mean, so when you are like, if when you think back on yourself and being in those difficult moments when you're just trying to get through and you have all of these crazy thoughts and all of these difficult moments that come up for you as you're trying to make your way through it and get through it and move towards healing. If you were to go back to your version, to younger version of yourself who was struggling through the journey, particular tough moments, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, that's such a hard question. Oh, so you're asking me to go back in time and say what to my younger person? Notice how
Yeah.
I need you to tell me the words. I would say to her, and it's hard. Like I think I don't know. I would say to her, I've got you, and I'm not going to put you in danger. I've got you.
Donna, when we met, you used the word survivor, and for me, it was it's something that like went through me like this kind of like a charge of thunder, because I knew it meant something, and it really changed my identity and realizing who I was. This word survivor, what does it mean to you?
I don't know. Like, I think I guess by default I say it and own it. But I'm not sure I have a super deep connection with the word. But I can also understand the grappling that goes with it. Like, when I was 26, 27, I went off to a sexual abuse kind of camp. Sounds a bit funny, doesn't it? But it was a healing camp. But it was a beautiful, beautiful healing camp. And they used the word, survivor. And at that time, I just remember oh my God, I can't say that. So I felt like that disconnection. And so I do understand what that's like. But I think, yeah, probably over the last 6-7 years, it just has become part of my everyday vernacular. And so I think I say it, yeah, with just because I don't know if there's another word to describe it. But I think that we did survive something, and that could have been one time or ongoing. Really something really horrific, and that, yeah, I think there's a strength that can come with that naming and that recognition. And I'm pretty out now, about being a survivor of child sexual abuse, because I don't, and I think yeah, it was really hard to lay claim to that to begin. I might have cried for ages when I said it, or gulped or went away and felt such intense shame, or woke up just feeling gross about that admission. But now I don't feel like that, because the more I say it, it's well, it's not like I sitting there as a child going, oh, please, sir, sexually abuse me. It's that was not my fault, that I was a victim then. And then as an adult now, I have survived that. I'm alive, and I can reclaim. It's my right. It's my need to reclaim what was taken away from me.
And I love that you just put it in those words, and you speak to the journey of realizing what that is and who you are deep on the inside, and seeking that support, and seeking to find words that describe that experience for you as well. Don, I remember when we met, and you asked me if I've done therapy. I said I didn't, and you said you're gonna love it, and I was like, hold on a second, I don't think that's gonna happen. And but since then, I feel like I'm going through that experience, and I will be going through for some time to come, and I am loving it. And and I think it's so crucial to us going on that healing journey. So, with your own experience and everything that you know about therapy, and everything that can support you on leading a happier and more fulfilled life if you've been through struggle and abuse, what's the one thing that you wish that people knew about therapy?
Look, it's a hard question because, like, I know a few survivors that like have had really bad experiences in therapy. So I think it's important to like also really call that out. You know, like I know survivors that have been abused by their therapists. So therapy
Wow.
for them isn't safe.
Wow.
And so I think it's really important to say, like, my experience, I feel really lucky. Like, yeah, it took me 6 years to find the right therapist. It took me 6 years. And the woman that I've got now, is incredible. And I feel really lucky. Like I knew instinctively. And like, I guess I was one of those people that just sort of maybe like had a bit of an intuition and a gut. And I was like, I just feel like, even though like when I remember speaking to her on the phone and I was kind of like, oh God, she sounds a bit, I don't know, serious or mean or something, but I just like, just do it, go, just don't create a narrative around that. And, I've been with her for 10 years ongoing. So, but that's not everybody's experience. And two, I think it's really important. To answer your question, what I think what people should know or something like that is that I think if you are a survivor of child sexual abuse, you've likely experienced dissociation, or fragments of memories, or etc. You need to be with somebody that's experienced in that. Somebody who's complex PTSD, dissociation, and sexual abuse, because it's very specific. And we need people that are like you. That to me would be absolutely non-negotiable. My therapist is experienced to a particular type of abuse, which is my abuse, and that is I've just needed that. It's been so validating for me. And my problem was before with the 6-year journey wasn't that people were ineffective. It's just that they were not seeing the symptoms and the stories like of what I was doing, experiencing, and saying. They weren't saying, oh, that equals dissociation, that equals a particular type of abuse. That's a problem. That shits me, actually, because that's like 6 years, like left kind of untreated in a sense. So I kind of didn't really answer your question, but.
No, but I think you speak to the vital point that you have to find the person who's going to be right for you, right? And that's true for everything in life. That's true for, if you want to fall in love, if you want to make friends, but it's also true when you want to find a therapist. Like, and sometimes it is, it takes time to figure out who's going to be the person who's going to be there on your journey, right? And sometimes it's about using your intuition, like you were doing. Sometimes it is going through sometimes people who might not understand where you're at or how to best support you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like also too, acknowledging that therapy is expensive. I've got a therapist that's actually like a low cost operator, so meaning that most people have to go on a mental health scheme. This is in Australia, and you might have international listeners, but in Australia, most people are on a mental health scheme, which is like 10 sessions a year. I think they changed it to something more, but where you get a set number of sessions per year and you get subsidized. I never went that route. Right? I was just like, I didn't trust it. I didn't want to share I just didn't feel that was right. I just went off on my own journey. I found someone, and thank God, like I found someone that I pay like $70 a week, cash. It doesn't really matter. It's not like I'm saying a name, but the point is, I can afford that. I can afford $70 a week, right? But some people can't, and so I think that's that's hard and sad, because I genuinely do believe in therapy, and I believe in having a team of supporters around you. And I think you've got to advocate for that. You got to find that people that you're willing to trust, that you're willing to commit to, that you're willing to see. But I think there's other types of healing avenues. But I think a therapist for me can just stabilize me in ways that I think is really important to being able to operate in a way that I do these days.
And I love that you bring about supporters and having like a team around you that is supporting you on your healing journey. So what's helped you and how do you go about putting together a team of people around you that you can trust to maybe open up with your story, or that can support you in ways that you're leading your everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the kind of individual journey comes in, and that you get to decide that. And I guess for me, like that started with 12-step programs, and which is a dollar a kind of in a sort of basket that you pay, and so I went into the rooms because I was desperate, and I needed sobriety and other afflictions that came with also the abuse. Everything from relationships and all the rest, other addictions that were coming up in my life. So it's a bit of a kind of, you name it, I've done it, I've tried it. But I just went along, and those were low cost group environments that where a bunch of people were getting up, sharing stories about healing and recovery. And what that did was that helped to give me a language for how I felt and how I thought, because I didn't know, Joe. I was very dissociated and very disconnected. Like I couldn't speak the way that I'm speaking now 10 years ago. It's taken a while to really kind of clearly express myself. And so that, and I think also too, like I think I say that like with a slight caveat of like, also those environments can be transient. They don't have to be I don't do those I don't go to those environments anymore, but they were really pivotal at one point in my life. There's other groups like Smart Recovery, or whatever it is, right? So I think groups are really important, is my point. Groups where people come together to talk, to share, to express their inner feelings and thoughts and worlds, because it helps you relate, identify, and seek some solidarity. You're not alone. Then you look at someone, you go, shit, mate, they've got it a lot worse than me. I'm okay, so it helps you put things into context too. So that, and then also too, I was lucky to, get a really good job, and I started studying. So I started doing my PhD. So that was happening like for 6 years alongside my recovery. And that, was a really huge transformational journey for me. It was difficult, but it was always something I kind of fell back on. So like education and learning was a huge value of mine, and I think has been vital in terms of me remaining interested in the world and enriching my life in ways that are outside of just dealing with this really heavy stuff. And I think too that my journey also incorporates boxing. And obviously you said I set up left right hook, which I did, and that's, I found boxing because I had like a lot of rage and a lot of anger come up, and I was like, okay, that's great, because I've been basically a depressive for years. Feeling is good, right? So but geez, I want to go and smash the shit out of something, and so I was like, I better go do something about that. So I went to a boxing gym and started boxing, and then that became this incredibly powerful recovery tool, where I began to kind of find empowerment through boxing as a form of physical expression.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I love Donna because and you speak to the fact that, yes, it does take so much courage to go out and seek groups or seek out basically connection, so that you do feel understood, and that you can understand your own journey and your own feelings, and find the language to be able to express who you really are. And as you say, like there's different ways to complement that healing journey, which is always takes these courageous steps. And you found that in boxing, which has been like just so transformative for you, which is and that has led towards creating left right hook. So let's dive into that, because it's just, Donna, you're making such a world of difference for survivors with this program. And it's not just a project, this is your life's work, because this is what you've been through, this is what you live. So how did it come together? Because you did boxing, how did that transition into left right hook?
Well, it probably transitioned because so I started boxing and then I started fighting. And within like 3-4 months, I was fighting. And,
You should
that,
be.
yeah. And again, that's probably just the kind of addict part of me. I'm like, yeah, go in there and, be really dramatic with it. But look, that was about an 18-month journey of kind of getting in the ring and reliving trauma and dissociation and trying to beat the dissociation and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of that journey, because I clocked up quite a lot of losses, and that wasn't good, because I loved the training and I loved the empowerment side of the training. But as soon as I took it into that kind of competitive space, because I didn't really have a strategy, it wasn't like I was going, I'm going to be a champion boxer. I was just kind of doing it for fun. But the win-lose, and then I was losing, was really bad for my mental health, because it was like, see, you're a loser. See, you can't win. See, you're not very good. And so that tape started to really come up quite high. And that was not good, because actually boxing was really positive for me. And so I came back to the end of that fighting. I was like, well, what am I doing this for? I'm obviously not a successful champion fighter. Yeah, it would have been great to kind of, say I was a winner, but I'm not. And maybe that's not really why I'm doing this. What am I doing this for? And it was like, well, I do really like boxing. And so, yeah, I might not be this great champion in a ring. And, but I am a good fighter. Like, I know what I'm doing. I've got skill, and I'm just in performance mode. That's where I'm not great, but like actually in training and everything, I really enjoy this. I want to work with other women like me, other survivors. I want to share what this experience is like, but I didn't feel like I was a champion. So I couldn't go, I'll teach you boxing, I'm a winner, So it was like, well, what can I do that's different? Maybe I don't teach boxing for survivors, because I don't feel super confident in that as that identity. But, well, I am an arts practitioner. I'm an educator. I've been a filmmaker for years. So what can I do that's different? Well, why don't I bring in an art practice, writing, as a modality? And because also too, that like going back to that 12-step stuff, like that was foundational in my recovery, because it was about sharing stories. And I didn't just want to teach people boxing. I wanted to actually really talk to other survivors. I wanted to connect with them. And so I thought, well, I'll set up, and this kind of title came to me, like left, right, hook, the right is writing. And I was like, yeah, I like that. And so I'm just going to set up a grassroots program at my local boxing gym. And I put it out there and picked a date and advertised it in my local newspaper, writing plus boxing. I'm going to run it. Didn't know what I was doing, nothing. All of a sudden, get some calls and people are signing up. Great. It's happening, and we do the program, and it's really powerful. And then I did a second program, and then because I work at the University of Melbourne, I was like, this would make a really interesting like research project. We should we should get some people on board who are experts and trying to test and measure, like, is this program does it work? And so we did. And, but also I wanted to do that research project, but also with the same group of participants, I thought, I also really want to make a documentary film. Like, that would be really cool. And I want to do a book as well. So like, I'm going to do it all together. Right. And so about 8 weeks, we tested and measured the program. There was a tick reduction in PTSD, reduction in depression, stress, and an increase in personal agency and resilience. Amazing, right? Now, Joe, that is also 2 weeks into that program, we pivoted online because we were in COVID, right? So this is 8 weeks, and 6 of those weeks were in people's bedrooms or lounge rooms, right? So it's really remarkable. So with that same group of participants, I kept working with them for 2 years because the filming was compromised and we didn't want to do a Zoom documentary. How boring was that? And so we sought funding, and that's a whole different kind of story. But also we produced a book of writings because I worked with the same group of survivors for a year, over 8-week programs, and we made a book together and published our writings that were generated from those boxing rounds. And now we've got a documentary that's just kind of going gangbusters, and it's just in post-production at the moment. Will be released at a big festival next year. And so from that, because it's just such a big kind of story, isn't it? Like, as we were seeking funding for that, people were like, oh, that's great. That documentary seems really interesting, but what are you going to do about the program? Because when people see the documentary, they're going to want to do the program. I'm like, I'm going to set up a program. And so that's what I've been doing over the last 12 months. And we set up a charity in December of last year, and just slowly training up trainers and getting other people to help run the program, so it's not just me. And it's just been an incredible ride, and kind of really changed my, I guess, the direction of my life, without kind of necessarily having a big plan in place.
Yeah, I love hearing that, Donna. And I love just the fact that you also talk about it, that it was a process for you to figure out, like, how do I take this whole boxing thing and how do I use it in a way that just speaks to me now? And I also love the fact that you decided to just do it, right? And sometimes life, that's how it is, right? Sometimes you don't have all the answers and you go, you know what? No, the hell with it. I'm just gonna do something and see what happens. And then that led you towards this, also a journey of figuring out, like, now it's evolved into this research project, and it's evolved into the documentary and the book, which is, I think, is so powerful. And I remember reading in your book, here it is.
I know, I was going to say I should have brought a copy and hold it up, but you've got one.
That's it. You should be doing that, though. You should just have about you, just carrying it around. And I know that in the book, because it was about, doing this work, and it was about writing. And in the book, you kind of had, I think, a prompt about, like, why are you back here, right? Because you had a number of rounds, and it was obviously a program, right? And in there you say, I'm here because I need to bandage my soul. And I love hearing that, because it's personal to you. You're still doing it because this is real to you. So tell me, Donna, what does it really mean to you, like, still to be doing this now and taking it where you're going with it?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think it's like, as though I feel like I'm still trying to bring all the pieces that were lost, like, back together. And so it just means, like, it's I'm just still finding parts of myself through the process. And, I don't feel healed. I feel like there's still like quite a long way for me to go. But I definitely feel like probably the strongest that I've ever felt in my recovery. But it's just like different layers. And so I think I'm still doing the work and want to do the work in this way, because, it helps me to connect to layers of myself that have been deeply hidden and repressed. And I find a lot of strength and solidarity in doing the work and meeting other survivors. And I just really feel their pain in a way that I think also allows me to connect with my pain. And I think because I was so dissociated for so long, and I mean, I still am, that, there's still a lot of, like, grieving that goes with that, around, I kind of lost memory, a lost sense of self, a lost identity.
That's powerful, Donna. If someone wanted to find out more about the program, maybe join one of the workshops, what would they do?
They can come to Left Right Hook, so WRITE, leftrighthook.com. Just fill out the contact form. They can find us on Instagram or Facebook, and yeah, just reach out. Really, we're early startup, growing and gaining a lot of support. But I think I feel a lot of hope and optimism that the program's moving in the right direction to empower survivors and connect people. And I think also to like really break that silence that's so inherent in child sexual abuse, and the shame, essentially. It's not the person's fault that this happened to them. And yet it just has such a profound, negative effect on people's psyche and development of self. And I feel I have a responsibility to help people, move through that. And I do believe in community, and I believe, in a strengths-based approach. And I think I believe, like, even though it's really hard sometimes, like, I get trapped in that sense of darkness and lack of hope and, futility. But like, I do really believe that like the light is stronger, and I just got to keep kind of holding on to that.
Good on you, Donna. You're taking your pain and your struggle and your healing, and you use it to help others. I love that. And just thank you for what you do in the world.
Thank you, Joe. Back at you.
Thank you so much, Donna.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.